From Vin Diesel to Jason Statham to The Rock, many bald badasses have taken the Fast and Furious franchise for a spin. But one of the most famous bald badasses in Hollywood, Dave Bautista, actually refused to have a ride with the family. I'm gonna talk about the reasons why he passed on the opportunity, and it looks like the flag has been waved. Bautista talked about all the shots he's taken and missed with Collider. Years and years ago, Dave went to a meeting with folks at Universal Studios. Universal was hoping to convince the wrestler turned actor to join the cast of their Fast and Furious franchise.
It's crazy. It's amazing. Getting into the project, that was the appeal. It's kind of and it was weird because we looked at it as this is fresh and new and exciting, and a lot of other people looked at it, well, it's a little obscure comic. I don't know. It's kind of a gamble, but we never looked at it like we were always excited.
Bautista, on the other hand, was actually interested in pitching a Gears of War adaptation to them. Yeah, it turned out neither of them got what they wanted. The meeting sounds like it was heated. As Dave describes it, he told Universal that he wouldn't want to pretend like he cares about Fast and Furious when he doesn't. Instead, he wanted to talk to them about a series that they can actually make that he's excited about. And then he asked them whether they'd consider him to be their Marcus Phoenix.
I didn't think because I didn't assume. But, when we had that conversation back then, you knew what I was after. And so I wanted, I wished for, I prayed, and I asked, and I sought after. But no, I didn't assume it was going to, come my way. It was one of those challenges I knew I was up against breaking into Hollywood because people saw me a certain way.
Now, seeing how passionate Bautista was about Gears, you might be curious as to whether that's going to happen. Well, it is, but Bautista isn't involved yet. Back in November last year, Netflix did announce that they were developing a feature film adaptation of Microsoft's famous video games. This will be followed by an animated series adaptation. However, nothing is known about the details just yet. They certainly haven't revealed the cast for the movie. As much as I think that Bautista would be perfect for Marcus, I'm not sure Universal would want to hire him, or they might troll him by casting him in the animated series. Who can say? After all, he didn't play ball with them. Can he expect them to play ball with him? But this video isn't about Gears. It's about Fast and Furious. Why wouldn't Bautista agree to do the F&F series, especially if it'd help him get Gears of War? I have a few theories, starting with his former colleagues. The Fast and Furious franchise has hosted many WWE alums. I mentioned Dwayne Johnson earlier, and he was a pretty major part of the franchise once upon a time. His character Luke Hobbs was introduced in Fast 5 and became symbolic of the franchise's reinvention into action movies. He went on to have major roles in the 6th, 7th, and 8th installments. In fact, he was so important to the franchise that while he was beefing with Vin Diesel, the studio gave him his own movie. Well, I guess it was also Jason Statham's movie, but we all know why that film exists. John Cena is another WWE megastar who recently played the villain in the 9th movie. What you might not remember is that Ronda Rousey, Roman Reigns, The Big Show, and Vladimir Kozlov were in the movies too. I feel like Bautista wouldn't want to end up in the latter camp of wrestlers whose appearances have been forgotten by most people.
There was just so much more pressure. There was so much more pressure because there was not only that, but Knight was also shooting with one camera and it was on film, and nobody wants to burn up film. We all know it's expensive, so there's a pressure of that. But also,
at the end of the day, when it comes to wrestlers, Fast and Furious is the Rock's franchise. Heck, I think people prefer Hobbs over some of the actual main characters of the series. There was a backlash against franchise stalwart Vin Diesel over his treatment of Dwayne after all. Speaking of that treatment, I think that's a contributing factor too.
I think everything's fine, yeah. We had a good chat long ago and everything is the way it should be. Yeah, absolutely. But look, in life it happens where you have fundamental differences in philosophies from other people, and I believe in doing things a certain way. He believes in doing things another way, and that's just the way it is. But yeah, we had a good chat.
I don't see that Bautista would want to have to deal with Diesel and his ego. It's long been an open secret that Vin Diesel sees himself as the true patriarch of the Fast and Furious movies. He's one of the very few people who's been around since the very beginning. And I'm sure he's noticed that, beyond this series, he doesn't have much of a career right now. His obsession with these movies has been a pain in the butts of his castmates and crew. It was only ever moderated by the influence of his friend and co-star, the late Paul Walker. At this point, the petrol, or is it diesel, fumes of the franchise have definitely gone to Vin's head. That egomania is what caused Vin to clash with Dwayne Johnson, whose popularity was threatening to eclipse Vin's own. After a lot of fighting, Dwayne Johnson hit rock bottom with Diesel and decided he didn't want anything to do with him. Now, after hearing all of that, would anyone be willing to work with Vin Diesel? I guess John Cena would, but Cena was only in it for one movie and he needed to boost his profiles to get other roles. Drax, the star of one of the most popular series in the most popular franchise in the world, doesn't need that. Now, Drax brings me to another reason why Bautista declined the series.
It was so comfortable coming back in. You know, I felt so at ease coming back as Drax. It was weird. It was something I had never experienced. Also, I think I just had that comfort level because I was amongst close friends this time coming in. But you know, I was more experienced as an actor, and I just really felt like Drax was mine. So it was just easy, man.
He has a particular direction in mind for his career. It's not that Bautista is against doing comedic roles. There's Drax, of course, but he also did the action comedy Stubber. Most recently, he was in the Knives Out sequel Glass Onion, which was also a pretty funny movie. Lately, though, it seems that Bautista has been talking more and more about what he actually wants out of his career. His trajectory so far is similar to the one followed by Dwayne Johnson. It's just that he's in better movies, but he's more interested in dramatic roles. One of the movies that put him on the map was Blade Runner 2049. He had, 10 minutes of screen time in that movie? That was more than enough to cement him as a genuinely talented actor.
And at the time, I think a lot of people took wrong. But I needed to do it to get people to see me differently. And it took years and years and years of Dad taking smaller roles just to get people, you know, like the role as, you know, in Blade Runner. You know, I fought for that role because I knew it was a good role and it would get me somewhere. It would get me to here.
It's clear that Bautista wants more of that in his future and less of Drax. See, for example, his high-profile role in the Dunes movies.
And I knew this going forward, that my part was going to be much bigger. It was the experience of a lifetime. I rapped last week, so I'm fresh off of Dune. But there's so much more going on in this film.
You don't need me to tell you that the Fast and Furious movies don't align with the kind of movies he wants to do. An association with this franchise in particular can really pigeonhole you. Bautista is at a point in his career where he can be selective about his roles, so he's unselecting the Fast and Furious. But before I go today, let's ponder something for a moment. What would a Bautista character in the Fast and the Furious look like? The interview in which Bautista told the story of his Universal interview was in 2021. By that time frame, I suspect that the movie he was being scouted for was F9. I see two possibilities here. On one hand, he may have been a candidate for the villain of the movie. As we learn, the F9 baddie was Dom's secret brother. John Cena was an odd casting choice, and Bautista at least looks more like Vin Diesel. I don't think the role was much more demanding from an acting perspective than that. Alternatively, if Bautista could have been convinced of a longer commitment, he might have joined the squad. After all, this was the first movie in a while without Dwayne Johnson in it. He could fill the hole left behind by Luke Hobbs. With F9, Fast X, and whatever the last one will be called, there were 3 movies that Bautista could have starred in. But then, that would also be 3 movies in which Dave's charisma and popularity could overshadow Vin Diesel's. It would have led to a repeat of the Dwayne Johnson situation. Yeah, no one was going to sign up to be in that situation. It looks like we'll never know. Bautista has hopped in his fancy car and left this phase of his career behind. That's all I have for you today about Dave Bautista's near miss with the Fast and Furious franchise.